Do you think that Bernie's too left? Do you think he's
For
too
a
left
lot of
for
the
a lot
country,
of people?
yes.
Do you think that's real?
But the media asks the wrong question.
Yeah.
The media asks, and there's a debate tonight, the media asks the wrong question, which is, what would you do? This is a question that only makes sense if you're running for king. The question should not be, what would you do? The question is, what can you get through? What can you propose that Mitch McConnell will not either block or you can override with votes? Because that's a very different discussion. What Bernie Sanders wants to do, we shouldn't even be talking about, because it's not going to happen.
The free education,
Yes,
paying back student loan debt.
Medicare for all.
Medicare for all.
You know, all these,
Impossible.
as long as unless the Republicans self-deport, even if the Democrat wins the election, there's still going to be half the country that's Republican and half the Congress is going to be Republican. And a lot of Democrats are not for this stuff. You know, when the Democrats took over the House in 2018, it was moderate Democrats who won their elections. It wasn't the far left. So
you get 4 years of spinning your wheel in the mud.
You get,
hoping to get some traction, even if he gets in.
Again, it's what can get through Congress. What can you get a consensus on? What can you make possible? Obama, when he did health care, said, yes, if we were starting from scratch, it would make sense to go for a single-payer system. But we're not starting from scratch. We're starting from a system where most people already have health insurance through their employer. It's a crazy story how that happened. It was World War II, and they couldn't raise wages because that was the law, so they had to find a way to give employers something else, so they gave them health insurance. But that's what we have now. And a lot of people like it or say they like it. I don't think a lot of people like arguing with their insurance company, but they're afraid of something worse. And I don't blame them. You know, if you're going to tell me the government, and I'm a Democrat, but if you're going to tell me the government is going to smoothly handle taking over something that large, I am going to be a little skeptical.
Well, it should be. They don't smoothly handle anything. There's no evidence they smoothly handle anything other than maybe delivering the news or delivering the mail.
Look, again, as an old-school progressive, when you go down the list of things that the progressives have accomplished, especially in my lifetime, I cheer them all. Social Security, well, that wasn't my lifetime, but they improved it in my lifetime. Medicare, Medicaid. These are great programs. I mean, before Social Security, the senior poverty rate was like in the 28% or something, and then it went down below 10. It was a success, but when you look at what the government really, what their big successes have amounted to, it's passing out money that very often they don't have. That's what they're really good at. Running a giant healthcare system, especially when the politicians who are proposing these systems will not, A, talk enough about, we got to cap the gouging. You can't pass out all this money if you're going to allow people, hospitals, pharmaceutical companies to charge anything they want, when the price of an EpiPen can go up from $12 to $1,200 overnight. That just can't happen. And also, they don't ask the people to lift a finger to take care of their own health. Nobody's healthcare system is going to work unless you people have some skin in the game. You can't not tell the people, look, you can't keep eating as much as you want and as shitty a food as you want and expect us to cover the bill. You just can't.
That is not something that anybody wants to hear, though.
Oh, I know, because I did that editorial. And
I know, I remember that. People got upset at you.
Well, here's the story. People did not. People loved it until James Corden said something.
Oh, that's right. He had that whole... First of all, he did that, and in doing that, made fat jokes. Which
I did not, by the way.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Mine was, there was nothing cheap on
morbid people.
Look,
morbidly obese people.
First of all, he missed a great opportunity to literally save lives. If he had taken the opposite approach, he took the easy way out. Of course, you can always get applause for saying, oh, let's boo the mean man who's told the truth. That's not brave. First of all, my point was, A, that you can't solve health care unless you ask the people to participate in that. That was one. And also that we've gone to this place where we're proud of it. We're proud of being unhealthy. Weight Watchers had to take the name Weight and Watchers out of their title.
It's WW now.
It's like, what? Being fat isn't bad. What's bad is someone pointing out that fat is bad. But, I mean, I read the statistic in that editorial. 40,000 people a month die from obesity. That's a crazy number. That is a crazy number. We have to somehow reverse this idea that we have in this country, not just about obesity, but about a lot of things where I'm perfect the way I am. I am just perfect the way I am. And if you say different, you're a very bad person. That's not a good place to be.
It's not healthy for anybody. It's you're protecting people's emotions, but shielding them from a possible moment that might make them realize that they are eating themselves to death. And
right. I mean, look, I said it also in the piece. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. That's fine. Whatever you think is beautiful, that's your deal. But health is science.
Yeah.
That's science. And when we get apoplectic, when there's 50 deaths from shootings or something a month, yeah, it's very bad, and we should be serious about that problem. But 50 versus 40,000 every month? And that's just what they're counting from the big ones, cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. There's literally nothing about your health that is improved by being overweight. So, I said we shouldn't taunt people, but, compare it to anything else. I also owned up to the fact that I used to drink too much and I smoked, but I didn't defend it. When someone said, you went kind of hard last night with the drinking, I didn't say, how dare you drunk shame me?
Well, the weird thing
I said,
about
you're
Corden,
right, I did.
The weird thing about Corden, too, is he's not that fat. Like, he could fix that in a couple of months. That's not that hard.
No, he took it was opportunistic.
Yes,
and
I
I'm
felt like that
saying
too. Yeah.
He literally lost an opportunity to save lives, because as someone who does struggle with weight, he could have taken the opposite approach and said, Bill makes a really good point. And we should look at how we are dealing with this. I noticed Jillian Michaels, the fitness expert.
She took a lot of shit for Lizzo.
Yeah. And, if you want to be whatever weight you want to be, that's fine. But it's wrong to shame a fitness expert for saying this isn't healthy.
Well, it gets even
crazier. She said it's not going to be that amazing when she gets diabetes.
Yeah, and people went, diabetes has nothing to do with weight.
Diabetes has
for sure.
everything to do with it.
For sure it does.
Also, they lie. They say things like, well, it's the fat gene. It's it's not that. Or here's another one. And look, this is valid. It's valid that in this country, it is a lot harder to eat right if you're poor.
Yes.
And we should totally address that.
Yes.
I doubt if it's on any candidate's top 10 list, but the way the food situation and subsidies are done in this country is horrible. But given that, let's not just throw up our hands and say we're the can't-do country. And because it's harder, let's not even try. Yes, it is harder to eat right on a budget. But I'll tell you something you never need to have with your food, soda, which is a large part of it, okay?
Huge.
And you'll save money. You
Yeah.
don't have to have soda. You don't have to have a Snickers bar. A banana is 19 cents. So it's not impossible.
Adele got shit recently because she got
Yes.
skinny. Because she got healthier.
That was also a part of my thing, was fit shaming, not fat shaming.
Yeah.
People go, eat something. Eat something. I'm fine. What? So you can feel better about your weight problem. I should eat and get fat too.
Well, when heavy people have a fan or have someone that they're a fan of that's also heavy, like James Corden, so he's heavy. He's got people in the audience that love him, and they love him standing up for other heavy people. Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. He's one of us. We're fine. I think they felt like that with Adele. That Adele was this fantastic singer, super talented, extremely popular, and overweight. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm like Adele. Everyone's fine. But then she loses weight. You feel like she's betraying you, because one of the reasons why I liked you is because you're fat. Now you're not fat anymore.
It wasn't that long ago that we were applauding people when they lost weight.
Yeah.
I remember when Oprah came out, that time where she was this was like in the 80s, I think, but she had lost a whole bunch of weight. There's a picture. It's a very famous picture. I think she's like in jeans, and she's got a like really thin waist, and she was raising her hands in triumph, and everyone was applauding. I guess that's bad now because, again, you have to be perfect the way you are, and if you criticize that, then you're a bad person.
So tell me what it's like to testify in front of the Senate. What is that like?
Man, it was pretty wild. It all transpired so fast. I got a call from Callie Means. We've become pretty good buddies. I know you're having him and his sister Casey on the podcast. Brilliant folks that are just patient advocates. I mean, at the end of the day, they had the same experience as I had. Callie, a little bit different walk of life. He was a lobbyist. Casey was a doctor, Stanford-trained surgeon. Realized that she was in a system where they didn't really heal people. They just treated symptoms and profiteered off disease states. And she said there's got to be a better way. So their voice rung so loud after I think they did Tucker that it led to momentum. And then because of you having me on the podcast, that's how I met RFK. And so Bobby's team had reached out to me maybe about a year and a half ago to come up to Dallas while he was doing a campaign there and sit down with him. And he was just asking 100 questions about what's going on and what did you see on the pharmaceutical side and what did you see owning pharmacies and billing insurance companies. And so when they had an opportunity to put this team together to testify in front of the Senate, the goal was to create a nonpartisan group of individuals to take a new, fresh approach to what is going on with chronic disease in America. Because the chronic disease crisis is at an all-time high. I mean, we could go through all the statistics, and I know that Casey and Callie will when they're on here, so I don't want to steal their thunder, but it's staggering. I mean, close to anywhere between 1.7 to 1.9 million people are dying a year of chronic disease. We talk a lot about war. Since the dawn of this country, roughly estimated between 1.3 to 1.5 million people total have died in war, American lives. So in a year, we're losing more people to chronic disease than all the wars combined. Wow. And we're not talking about it. So to me, I was excited when they said, hey, the Senate's willing to hear, and that's the beauty of a democracy. They did let us come in there and candidly take a dump on the Senate floor on what's going on with this healthcare system and really dig into the weeds.
Did anybody try to take the side of the pharmaceutical drug industry? Did anybody question you or try to push back?
So prior, you do a debrief. So we did do a roundtable prior to going into the communal roundtable in front of the public eye, which they had no idea what was coming. The Senate didn't expect it. We had assembled a grassroots effort to get the word out there, and over 2,000 people took off from work. This is a Senate hearing. Over 2,000 hardworking Americans took time from their busy day, flew to D.C., had to sit in an overflow room to listen to these testimonies. And the level of feedback from people, from like real humans, real world people, was staggering. I mean, people afterwards came up in tears sharing their story of how the system had let them down or a loved one down, misdiagnoses, like all the different issues that they've dealt with trying to navigate this system. And to the senator's credit, behind closed doors, they did say, you probably don't want to go ultra hard after the food industry or ultra hard after the pharmaceutical industry because it may limit our ability to get things done. But they did.
How do they phrase that?
They just said you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. And, me, Callie, and the other folks that sat on this panel, our goal was to just share our stories and share what we saw. And so my testimony in particular was really more about the human side. There's so many staggering datas and statistics and numbers, but behind all that is a person. Like, that's all I wanted people to understand. These are human lives. When Jelly Roll testified, I think he said this equivalent to a 747 jet worth of people die of opioids a day. And that's insane. And that all started with the lapses in the FDA and the drug regulatory market. And we know that, there's an argument out there. I know Callie released the number of 50+% of the FDA's funding comes from Big Pharma. When it comes to drugs alone, 75% of the drug funding comes from the pharmaceutical companies themselves. And so there's a big market there. And with Big Pharma spending over $8 billion a year advertising, that's more than the entire sum of the FDA's budget.
$8 billion a year just in advertisement. Imagine how much they're making so that they can afford $8 billion just in advertising.
Yeah, it's insane.
And those ads
but what
are
I saw
wild.
is, the truth is, my hope is that people listen and the American people fight. We can fight with our pocketbooks. We can fight through our choices as citizens. Do I have faith that the government's going to fix these problems overnight? I don't. But at least we're having the conversation. And to their credit, they let us speak freely. They didn't put a censor on us. They tried to give us some coaching, to say, hey, if you go this route, just understand there's going to be blowback. And, we're here to get progress on these topics, not, burn the house down type deal. And then I did have some, and it was a bipartisan effort. So some of the senators in the room had mentioned, well, the American people just want a pill. They don't really want a solution, that they're looking for an easy way out. And I pushed back. And it's funny because one of the moms that was there was like, oh my God, I can't believe you were just dropping F-bombs in that meeting. But I'm like, I think you're fucking wrong. I mean, after being in healthcare since I was 20 years old, what I see is people struggling for answers. People are in the pit of despair.
Who was saying that the American people just want a pill?
I don't want to name any names, but one of the senators there was saying, in his experience, people are looking for the easy way out, and I don't think that's the case. I think people are looking for hope.
Well, here's the thing: if there was a real easy way out, like if there really was a pill with no side effects that cured all your ails, sure, people would want that.
Yeah.
And this is the problem: the advertising, that $8 billion a year, it leads you to believe that there is some sort of a solution in the bottom of a prescription bottle.
Yep.
And that's not real. That's the problem, is that they've been misled so long and for so far down the line. And here they are, chronically ill, suffering, and they're hoping it's the next pill.
And that was, our hope was to break down from the start of, how do we process these foods? How do we grow, harvest, and what do we do with our soil? What do we do with our pesticides? How do we bring these products to market? How do we regulate our food industry? And that's all new to me. That's not my expertise. My expertise in my testimony was focused on what I saw as a drug rep, what I saw as a med device rep, what I saw billing insurance companies. And that was a part of the talk that we didn't even get to dive deep into. But the goal was to explain to the Senate from the food processing, growing, harvesting, chemical treatments, to the packaging, to the ingredients we add into our food, to the hospital systems. Throughout the system, front to back, the American people are set up for failure. In the 1950s, the FDA had approved 700 different ingredients in our food products. That's it, 700. Today, there are over 10,000 chemicals and petrochemicals in our food products in the United States. In Europe, still 700.
Jesus.
And what gets crazier is when Food Babe, she's an influencer, right? And that's been, crapped on by the media.
It's an unfortunate name, Food Babe.
But she's an advocate, and she's just a voice, a mother out there saying, hey, guys, what's wrong with this picture? Let me show you what's in Fruit Loops in America, and let me show you what's in Fruit Loops in Canada. The same manufacturer, Kellogg's, is selling one product to the American people and a safer, less ingredient, less chemical-filled product outside the United States. They have the ability to sell it here, but they don't, because they know they can sell more addictive, more colorful, vibrant, that attract kid food sources here in the U.S.
It's so dark.
And so we walked through all of that. It blew my mind on the food front. And we know, you and I have talked, like in the healthcare system, my main message was, we're here to talk about the boom in chronic disease. We know that food and our environment has a huge impact on that. But so does preventative care. And so does building an ecosystem that allows clinicians to troubleshoot and diagnose and prevent chronic diseases from evolving in the first place. These are all metabolically related disease states. All the chronic diseases that are killing us can be traced back to diet, lifestyle, and nutrition, but none of our clinicians are trained on diet, lifestyle, and nutrition.
That's the hard pill for people to swallow. Diet, lifestyle, and nutrition. It's very hard for people who are addicted to shitty food, who are lazy, who don't have a history of exercise, and their lifestyle sucks, and they get home from work and they like to drink.
Yep.
Like all those things are killing you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you and I have talked about this with some of your comedy friends that have become my friends too, to watch the evolution. You just got to give people momentum. We just got to get some wins on the board. We got to give them hope. And we've got to start by having the conversation. And that's what I was optimistic about. For the first time in my adult life, the Senate is willing to sit down with a group of individuals and have a deep conversation about where our food comes from, how our food is being processed, what ingredients are in our food, and how that could potentially lead to chronic disease. And it got labeled by some of the, I would say, hatchet job media outlets that have come out, and we can dive into that. Somebody called it the woo-woo.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Let's dive into it. First of all, fuck you, whoever wrote that. Because there's nothing woo-woo about anything you guys were saying.
Yeah.
That's what's really crazy.
Yeah.
To say that toxic chemicals that are illegal in other countries but are legal in the United States, and there's a reason why they're illegal. You could find all the different things that they do to the body, all the different damage they cause. To say that that's woo-woo is so crazy. Like, what did they list as an example of woo-woo?
What's hard is they went immediately at, like, these are all entrepreneurs that have something to sell you. And I can tell you, sitting in the room with those people, all of us were scared. All of us were scared. It's scary. I'm not going to make money off of this. If anything, I could lose money. I have businesses that are under the FDA's guidelines, are under the FDA's oversights. I don't want to upset the apple cart, but I also want to tell the truth. And I wanted to share what I saw, and that was my message was, I'm not here to represent the left or the right. I'm here to represent humanity. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is a humanity issue. These are people's lives.
But it's just stunning that people are willing to whore themselves out to write a hit piece on someone trying to help human beings find healthier choices and realize the root cause of all the diseases that we're facing.
The woo-woo article, she alludes to how we talked about nothing but metabolic disease. And what does metabolic disease have to do with cancer? Well, actually, I can tell you, it is the number one risk factor. Obesity and metabolic disease is the number one risk factor to all forms of cancer other than smoking. So if you take smoking and age out of the equation, it's your number one risk factor. That's what it has to do with it.
Imagine that statement. What does metabolic health have to do with these diseases? That is so crazy.
And the people on that panel, too, to their credit, I was the least qualified of anyone to be in that room, and I was there to talk about my experiences as an industry insider. I am not telling you that I am an expert on metabolic disease. I can tell you that I'm an expert on fuckery because I've been in healthcare long enough to see what they're doing, and I know their equation. I know their offense. But other than me, you had Casey Means, Stanford-trained surgeon. You had Dr. Palmer, a psychiatrist from Harvard, who was breaking down metabolic disease and how it's astronomically impacting the mental health crisis in America. One of the stats he dropped on us in his testimony was we are at an all-time high in suicide and death of despair, greater than during the Great Depression. More Americans are dying of suicide and death of despair more than ever. More children are being diagnosed with metabolic disease, diabetes. Girls are starting periods 6 years younger. Like, I don't need a double-blind study to tell you something's wrong. Just look at the data. And that was this message.
I'm hearing a lot of woo-woo from you.
Yeah.
I need some data.
It's like, as we get into that, in the names, they just totally breezed over, and that article tried to make it sound like it's a bunch of influencers. And it's like, yes, there were some people who have social media presences, but there were also academics there.
But also, you can't
Harvard,
dismiss,
Stanford, and Stedman Hawkins.
You can't dismiss someone who's giving out factual information because they're a so-called influencer. Some people get into influencing for a good cause.
100%.
And they have real valid information, and they collect that valid information and distribute it, and that's how they get a following.
And even Vonnie is the food babe. Vonnie, her battle has helped remove ingredients from certain states, stop chemicals in certain food sources. They're actually going to march to Kellogg on the 10th of next month to hand a petition signed by over 100,000 Americans coming out the tail end of that, asking them to remove dangerous chemicals that they don't put in food products in other countries and just match it. That's all they were asking. Hey, why don't we just match what you're doing outside the U.S. and all these other countries where they've said these products aren't safe? Why are we allowing you a mulligan on the U.S. population when it comes to food? And they've never been studied. That's the other wild thing. The FDA doesn't have the bandwidth to study every time a new ingredient's added to a food source.
Well, first of all, how long you been doing music?
I think most of my life, you know.
Did you grow up in a musical family, or is it just something you picked up on your own?
No, everyone worked and made art when they weren't working,
Oh, okay.
but no music really. But that I liked. I like music.
Like, what kind of art did your family do?
Like my mom would always paint. She put like murals on the walls of the house and stuff. And my old man's a mechanic. And he would be tinkering around, making all sorts of fun stuff, usually with his welder and whatnot. So I felt like they were artistic folks, you know. But they didn't necessarily do music. You know, they're smarter than that.
And so I only know of you from the videos that you put up on Instagram. And specifically, I think it was the United Healthcare guy was the first one, right? Which was really good, dude. It's the lyrics, and the timing of it all. You captured the moment, and that song to me was like, yeah, that's what the fuck is going on.
Right.
That's what's really going on. They don't give a shit about you, and they're just trying to make money. And that's why when this guy got shot, there was this reaction from people. Which is very rare when someone gets assassinated, when people celebrate.
Right. When
someone's not like a mass murderer or something.
It was bizarre.
It was bizarre.
It's I mean, it must mean something is up. If people are celebrating somebody's death, something is wrong.
And across both sides of the aisle, it's not a political thing. It is a human thing. They're like, these people, they take your fucking money, you pay them, and then when something comes up, you don't get covered. And there doesn't seem to be any repercussions. And to fight it, you have to go to court. And you usually don't have the money to go to court. And they have a lot of fucking money.
Right.
And they, have been doing this for a long time. And now they're using AI to make sure that they pay less. So they're using AI to approve cases. And the numbers are even lower than they were before. So United Healthcare always had a lower number than industry standard, right?
Yeah.
Now it's even with AI, they're going to be able to chop it down to even lower. It's like, at what point in time does this become against the law? Like, at what point in time is this like, it's a con game? Like, you're paying, you're thinking you're going to get covered, and they're like, nah.
The system would have to be revolutionized. I mean, you can't have health for profit at that point. You'd have to socialize the medicine at some point.
Which I agree with. Up until a point. The problem is human nature. And if you hurt your shoulder and you need to get an operation on your shoulder, you want to go to a guy who does the Lakers. You know what I mean?
Right.
You want to go to a guy who is like, this motherfucker is the cream of the crop. He is dialed in. He's been doing this forever. He's super focused and motivated. And he drives a fucking Mercedes, right? And the reason why he drives a Mercedes, he makes a lot of money doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
You don't want someone to not feel appreciated, not have the motivation to continue to get really great at their craft. Like, there's a thing with just human beings. There's a financial motivation that people have because it's a quantitative thing. You can see it on a ledger. You know that you're making more money because you're doing this and you're working harder and you're getting this reward, whether or not it makes sense or not. As soon as you eliminate that and everybody gets the same amount of money and then you lose all the killers.
Right.
You lose all the...
No, all I mean is that you just don't want to have to go to an urgent care and it costs $500 to get a pack of antibiotics.
100%. Well, that's a giant scam.
So, but that's a scam that so many folks are stuck in,
That's only part of the scam. The healthcare scam, it goes so deep. There's so many different layers to this fucking horrible den of vampires.
Right.
you know, because it's whenever you can make profit off of people, and you're involved in a corporation, and then the corporation has an interest its stockholders want more money every year. They want more money every quarter. So that's what they try to do. Yeah. That's their focus. And when you're doing that with people's lives and people's health, like that should be illegal. That's where it gets fucked.
Right. I suppose that's why folks were. It was upsetting to see. I felt like I actually had kind of an unpopular opinion about it, and that why are we celebrating somebody's death? Like that seems far out. Just to celebrate the murder of somebody with a gun.
Not only that, I believe unrelated to him in his case.
Like, how far out is that? And so I didn't want, I make these tunes, but that one in particular, I was like, how do I address this? What do you even say? So
how do you approach something like that? Do you sit down with a pad and pen, or do you start writing? Like how do you start singing?
Step one is avoid the work. So I went I went for some long jogs. I wrote a song about Amazon instead, and put up like Amazon is Santa Claus, and I kept sitting there, and it kept getting. The situation was snowballing with the United Healthcare thing, and it was like, okay, you got to write. And at that point, it's a research project. Let's write 2,000 words so that we can have 300 to sing, and boil down the essence of the issue, and make it rhyme, and put a jolly tune behind it. That's kind of how that goes about.
That sounds like super similar to stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I
like
think
you boil it down.
Yeah. Get and you don't. It's just punchlines. So find the punchline of everything. Find the punchline of everything. I never had the attention span to tell too much of a story or anything like that. So I like just keeping it in punchlines. So I always like Mitch Hedberg and Stephen Wright. We're so good at that. Just come out and lay out a bunch of punchlines immediately. If one doesn't land, on to the next one.
Well, that was the daunting thing about their act, which is so impressive, is that it's all non sequiturs. So every subject is new. Yeah. Every time they open their mouth, it's a new subject.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy. It's a crazy way to do comedy.
Yeah.
But when you're an absurdist, it's probably the best way, because it's an absurd way to think, right? You're just going from one subject to the next in each minute burst. Yeah. Somebody asked me if I want a frozen banana, and I said no, but I want a regular banana later, so yes.
Yeah.
That's like such a ridiculous joke. I used to love listening to him in particular when I was in traffic, because it would like chill me out. Like if I was headed to the airport in LA and it was just fucking clusterfuck on the highway, I would just throw on some Mitch Hedberg and just start giggling. It was just silly, He's
one of the coolest.
He was awesome. He was awesome. Let's play that song. Jamie, can you find that one? The United Healthcare song? I want to play it so people know what we're talking about. So people.
Building and a person and a chair, and you paid for it all, though you may be unaware. You paid for the paper, you paid for the phone, you paid for everything they need to deny you what you're owed. There ain't no you in United Health, there ain't no me in the company, there ain't no us in the private trust. There's hardly humans in humanity. Now the procedure that you're needing ain't the cost-effective route, and only 2% of people end up winning a dispute. So if you get sick, pray to God for help, 'cause your doctor's gotta pray to United Health. Way back in 77, Mr. Richard T. Burke started buying HMOs, putting federal grants to work, made 50 billion buckaroos. Last year, the Warren Buffett of health, the Jeff Bezos of fear. Now CEOs come and go, and one just went. The ingredients you got, bake the cake you get. But if you get sick, cross your fingers for luck, 'cause old Richard T. Burke ain't giving a fuck. Commoditized health, monopolized fraud. Here's the doctors we own and the research we bought. They own the pharmacies and a lot of the meds. They should start buying graves to sell us when we're all dead. There ain't no you in United Health, there ain't no me in the company, there ain't no us in the private trust. There's hardly humans in humanity. There's hardly humans in humanity.
Fuck yeah, dude. That's a great song. That's a great song. And it's interesting to me how few people are doing what you're doing. I don't know of anyone else. I'm sure there probably is a few people out there that I missed, but I don't know of anybody else who takes things that are in the zeitgeist, these big stories that come up, and turns them into a catchy tune and does it in a way where you laid out, really the problem and the whole thing, like you said, in punchlines. Well, a lot of people, and me, I'm definitely guilty of this, they hear terms like holistic or Eastern medicine or Chinese medicine. You go, bullshit, right?
Well, I have a good bullshit detector, too. And so I'm really careful about what I, accept and what I don't.
What do you not buy into? Like when you see your bullshit detector, like where are you?
All right, I'll give you an example. I can't see any basis for crystal healing.
I got a crystal in my pocket right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn
All
it.
right, well, too bad.
Damn.
How about the colonic irrigation people?
Oh
that
yeah,
tell you that they see watermelon seeds coming out and you haven't eaten a watermelon in months. That's bullshit. The lining of the GI tract sloughed off and is regenerated every 24 hours. There's no way that things can get encrusted there.
Yeah. That's a weird one, the colonic thing, because your body has all this natural bacteria that you're supposed to keep in there, right?
Not only keep in there, we're finding out that that's like more and more a really important determinant of everything, of general health, of mental health, too. Fascinating.
Yeah, whose idea was it to start doing those colonics?
That must go way back. That's kind of like,
It's a wacky idea.
Yeah.
Pump some water up there.
Yeah.
See what's up.
Yeah.
And you have to stand there.
And it's addictive, too. I see people
really?
get addicted to this. Yes.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So
Out of all the things.
Yeah, I won't go further into that.
My wife had it done once, and she was describing it to me. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pass. Some lady's looking at the tube and telling you what's going on in there. Like,
Right.
what? Some ladies like looking
Right.
at your shit.
Right.
It started as early as 1500 BC. Eber's Papyrus, an ancient Egyptian medical document, described the many benefits of colon cleansing. In ancient times, the practice of cleansing the colon was administered in a river by using a hollow reed to induce water to flow into the rectum.
You don't want to drink downstream of that.
Yeah.
And there's no need to do this. What you want to do is make sure that things are going through in the right direction regularly, and it cleans itself.
That's how it's supposed to do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another big one, I hear all these people that talk about detoxification, and sell all these products. The body has many natural methods of purifying itself and getting rid of things it doesn't want. One is through sweating. One is through breathing. One is through urination. One is through colonic elimination. The liver has an incredible capacity to detoxify. It can take, you put something into your body, the liver, within seconds of seeing a compound it has never seen before, can begin making a specific enzyme to take that apart and get rid of it.
Wow.
And you can amputate half of the liver, and it can regenerate within 36 hours.
What?
Yes, liver's amazing.
36 hours?
Yeah.
So I thought when you gave someone like half your liver, if there was like a liver transplant issue, that it took a long time. I didn't know it was
liver can
36
regenerate
hours.
really quickly. And
That's
there's
insane.
And there's a natural product that you can take that most doctors don't learn about called milk thistle. You've probably heard of that. That revs up liver metabolism. So these are all simple ways to increase. But the first rule of detoxification, I'm sure you can guess, you stop putting toxic things in.
Aha! Cut it off at the pass.
And let the body get purify itself.
I think a lot of people listening to us years ago, it's just like, this sounds conspiratorial. And it's just like, what actually happened? And there's a couple like really important dates that happened that are historical that I think like set this structure really intentionally. The first was 1909, the Flexner Report. So literally John D. Rockefeller's personal lawyer wrote the report for Congress that basically set the standard that's the standard today for medical education. And it literally says in the binding guidelines that holistic health and nutrition and anything about interconnectedness of the body is pseudoscience. It says we need to name the condition and cut it out or prescribe it.
And what year is this?
1909.
So they're still going by the recommendations of 1909.
We still follow the Flexner report.
Some a policy. I mean, and we
so
could get
crazy.
the policies, but like rescinding the Flexner report and having updated scientific education and standard of care guidelines based on what we've learned since 1909 about the majesty of the interconnectedness of our body is a really good first start, because we're binded under a law, just demonstrably, just like, again, not conspiratorial. John D. Rockefeller's personal lawyer wrote this report. Why? Because John D. Rockefeller is the father of the pharmaceutical industry and created pharmaceuticals from byproducts of oil production, and was the first investor into Johns Hopkins and other major medical schools, University of Chicago, and started the modern education program for health. There were some big issues in the health, this was the Wild West, but he created Johns Hopkins and the standard of residency training as a way to silo diseases very intentionally and then prescribe his products and interventions as the top pharmaceutical maker. And the medical schools that he created were basically a distribution system to him. Okay, so you get to World War II. Up until World War II, around that time, the 1950s, 1960s, I would argue almost any medical miracle you can think of or any listener can think of was created before that time. You know, it's all acute situations, emergency surgical procedures, sanitation procedures, antibiotics to make an infection not deadly. Almost every medical miracle we can think of was something that was going to kill you right away, infectious disease. And then you take the pill or take the treatment for a finite period of time and you stop it, or do the surgery quickly and you're cured. Those are medical miracles. And we had a lot of good things happen up until World War II. Very intentionally, the medical industry saw the birth control pill in the late 1950s, 1960s. And the birth control pill was the first pill in world history that people took for longer than a couple weeks. It was the first pill ever that is like, oh, interesting. You can actually convince someone to take a pill for years, for almost most of their life. Recurring revenue. And there was a huge emphasis of the medical industry to take the trust engendered up until 1960. RFK talks about this. We didn't spend money on chronic disease management. All medicine was acute issues. Chronic disease, diabetes, obesity, that was outside the doctor's office. They saw that you could medicalize chronic conditions. Today, 90 to 95% of spending is on chronic conditions. So what do? In the 1970s, literally the Sackler family, their grandkids did the opioids. Their forebears created Valium. And 30% of women in the United States in the 1970s were on Valium. Time Magazine, Valium Nation, Mommy's Little Helper.
Yeah.
So we started creating all these psychiatric conditions. We started medicalizing heart disease. We started medicalizing all these type 2 diabetes, started creating academic research totally funded by the pharmaceutical industry saying that type 2 diabetes isn't reversible, that it's basically genetic, heart disease, all these things, and started pilling them. Then what happened to food? Chronic disease wasn't that big of a deal in the 1970s, 1980s. You look at the graph of all chronic conditions, there's just a sharp turn in the 1980s. It's literally almost to the year of the Surgeon General report saying smoking wasn't great. So the second that report came out, Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds were two of the largest companies in the world. It wasn't like Microsoft and Google on the top companies list. It was like cigarette companies. Dopamine is a really good thing to sell, which the tech companies do now. And they used their cash piles. And by 1990, the three largest M&A deals in American history, in world history, were cigarette companies buying food companies. So you had Nabisco bought by R.J. Reynolds, you had Kraft and U.S. Food and you see those graphs of all the food companies owned by like a couple companies. That was the cigarette companies. And they did two things very, very intentionally. They took over the institutions of trust to say ultra-processed food was healthy, and then they took their scientists and rigged the food itself to make it more addictive. Not to kill kids, but to make it more addictive. So you had the literal food pyramid, which said ultra-processed food is great, low fat, carbs, base of the pyramid. That was constructed literally by the cigarette industry to promote their addictive products. And this weaponization of food, as I call it, it's not just like this conspiracy. Literally the cigarette industry, those two companies, Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds, were the two largest food producers in the United States. Like 50% of American food were created by cigarette companies in the 1990s. And they have gotten us addicted and weaponized this food, and all chronic conditions have just shot up. It's because that ultra-processed foods, literally by tobacco industry scientists, hijacks our evolutionary biology. Again, you can't overeat grass-fed steak, but these food, with scientists much smarter than any of us, that's what they're doing. They're shutting off our satiety signals. The byproduct of this cheap addictive food, which we don't even have research for yet, is that it's sprayed with all these chemicals. It's sprayed with 10,000 chemicals that are allowed in the United States when only 400 are allowed in Europe. All these chemicals to make the food addictive, to make the food cheap, to do the monocropping. And that food is absolutely, and we don't need to wait for the research on this, these chemicals, these neurotoxins are destroying our cells, destroying our microbiome in ways we don't fully understand. So I just want to make clear to everyone, this has happened very intentionally. And it can be undone pretty quickly too, but we have to realize this isn't a conspiracy. It's true corruption that happened deliberately.
I would just add a few more dates. I think one thing about the research, we're one of the only countries in the world where the burden of proof for harm, we allow these chemicals to just enter our food system. We have 10,000 chemicals in our food system. Europe, only 400, because they have to show that it's safe before they use it. We're allowed to use it, and then only if there's issues that crop up do people have to do research. So, there's this ridiculous GRAS, generally recognized as safe designation, which is essentially a company self-assesses whether the chemical that they are creating is generally recognized as safe. No one's overseeing it. And Brigham talks about this, compassion for the FDA. They're overwhelmed. There's a lot of stuff to do. It's kind of like a hoarder's house. Where do we even start? I don't necessarily know if I buy that. I think that it's pretty bad and bought off that we have all these chemicals. But they basically just have to self-designate if it's generally recognized as safe, and then it can go into our food system. One thing that I find really interesting is that I really reflect on a lot is what is the difference between a food chemical and a drug? They're all just synthetic molecules that are made in factories, in labs by scientists. Do you know what the difference is? Intended use. So basically, if the intended use is for food, you can synthesize almost anything you want and put it in food. We are being mass drugged and poisoned in our food system with 10,000 virtually unregulated chemicals, which have bought off papers saying that they are safe. I mean, you look at what happened with all the Monsanto litigation about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They had to release this whole thing called the Monsanto papers. They were declassified, where they ghost wrote scientific papers saying that glyphosate is safe. So there's all this corruption in there where basically we have 10,000 unregulated chemicals in our food system and we're getting sick as hell, obviously. And then you've got the evidence-based people saying, well, we need to have a 10-year longitudinal study to show that glyphosate is causing XYZ disease. And it's obviously that's not the right approach, because first of all, it is the synergistic combination of all the toxins that are now in our environment that are leading to all these pleiotropic health issues. That's very hard to study. So we have to get our heads out of our ass and use our common sense and realize what's going on, and not wait 10 years with these, NIH-funded studies that are going to be corrupted. And, I think, so that's just one thing about the food chemicals. I just wanted to add to your point, Cal, some other dates, you look at the processed food emergence. Processed food really didn't start taking off until these mergers. There was a little bit of a start of it. Ultra processed foods did not exist before World War II. We needed to have shelf stable food for soldiers and things like that we could ship, and so there were maybe some good intentions there. But then there was an opportunity there that got seen, and we can also weaponize the feminist movement against being in the kitchen, you're a slave. You don't, that your value's outside the home. You need to climb the corporate ladder. Here, have this convenience food that we basically made for soldiers, and we're going to tell you that this is actually your liberation. So of course we got people not cooking. Families aren't eating together anymore. Kids are eating 67% of children's calories now are ultra processed foods. These means foods that come from a factory made by food scientists, not just processed, ultra processed. The highest form of processing, 67% of calories. Then you go to the 1970s and we have the advent of high fructose corn syrup, which, as Callie talks about, this preceded some of the mergers, but high fructose corn syrup is a weapon of mass destruction that basically food scientists used an understanding about hibernating animals like bears who fructose is one of the only types of calories where instead of making you feel satiated, it makes you more hungry. And this is evolutionarily, and we knew this. In the fall, when animals are preparing for hibernation and they start eating fructose-rich berries, they need to put on a ton of fat for winter. And so there's a feed-forward mechanism with fructose where it actually gets the bears to be hungry and even violent to outcompete other animals to get as many berries as possible in a short period of time to lay 3D print fat for winter. So you have the scientists understanding this and say, hey, we can make liquid fructose 1,000 times more potent than the fructose you'd find in berries. Same molecule, but in higher concentration. And we can add it to everything. We can add it to salad dressing. We're going to add it to ketchup. We're going to add it to children's school lunches. We're going to add it obviously to sodas, and we're going to make people insatiable. We're going to make their bodies and their brains think that they're preparing for winter that's never coming. And there has been research that shows that high fructose corn syrup is associated with violence, ADHD in kids, all of these different things. Just last thing I'll mention, flash forward 1986, I think another very important date, which is the date when the litigation went through that said we couldn't sue vaccine manufacturers. And the Vaccine Safety Act, that's a very important date in the whole history because it is one of the first times where we were able to pass legislation through Congress that said that pharmaceutical companies could not be sued for wrongdoing. And that still is present today. They basically put together a paltry little fund that people could apply to get no fault reimbursements for vaccine harm, but you cannot sue the company. So you start to get companies being legally immune from wrongdoing, which has then accelerated. And they're now starting to try and push things like that for pesticides as well. So that's just some of the history of like why we are where we are today. It's not rocket science. This has all been very institutionalized and structured. And it's the last 50 years. Like we can undo all of this with leadership. And so that's just a little bit of the picture of how we are where we are today.
And can I just one thing about the fructose corn syrup? I'm so glad you brought that up because I didn't know that there was a unique way that it makes it more addictive and kills your satiety.
Oh, yeah.
Or increases it, or kills it rather. Because I'd always thought that sugar was sugar. And this is one of the arguments that a lot of people that are poo-pooing all this stuff, like, oh, this is nonsense, sugar is sugar.
Yeah.
Like, there's no difference between the sugar in high fructose corn syrup versus the sugar in an apple.
No, it's really interesting. There's two amazing books on this. Richard Johnson from University of Colorado wrote Nature Wants Us to Be Fat, and then David Perlmutter wrote Drop Acid. Both books are about a molecule called uric acid, which is unique to fructose metabolism. So when fructose is metabolized in the body, not like glucose, it creates uric acid, which creates oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction in the brain and the body, that if you have mitochondrial dysfunction, you're not going to be able to process sugars to energy, mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell. So you break the mitochondria with the excess fructose overloading the mitochondria with uric acid. And then what happens? You can't turn sugars to energy. So what do? You turn sugars to fat. So you start 3D printing fat because you break the mitochondria with excess fructose. And on top of that, the mitochondrial dysfunction and oxidative stress when happening in the brain is what may inspire the violence and the ADHD and all that stuff to make the bears manic so they get as much berries as possible. This is what's happening in every kid in every classroom in America now. And so that's kind of some of the biology very simply about what's happening with fructose.
So the apple is probably a bad example, but like cane sugar. Is cane sugar fructose based?
Well, it's generally is going to have sucrose, which is going to have some amount of glucose and fructose. But this is the thing about fruit, is that we have 40 trillion cells, and we have the ability to clear uric acid, and we have the ability to process fructose in a physiologic amount. We're never going to have the uric acid increasing and overloading the mitochondria if we're eating an apple. It's when you're eating 20, 30 times the fructose that an apple has, and you're literally pouring it down, that all of a sudden, imagine you get this huge rise in uric acid in the body and other things that are happening, and that's when it overwhelms. So it's a bit of that dose makes the poison, because our body has the ability to excrete toxins. Our body has the ability to deal with some heavy metals. Our body has the ability to probably clear some level of glyphosate, but we can't clear all of it all the time, 24 hours a day.
There's got to be something done to push back against this idea that we have right now, weaponize this idea of defunding the police, that the police are evil. That the police having money is the problem. And it's crazy. Like, there's a reason why we have the police, folks. They're necessary. It's very important. And to abandon them or to treat them like anything other than members of our community and very important members of our community is so short-sighted and so crazy and done by people that I don't think understand psychology. I don't think they understand violence. I don't think they understand crime.
Yeah.
And it's weaponized. It's this thing that they're using now to push a political agenda, to align themselves with people, so that it helps them get reelected. It helps them gain power with their constituents. It's so dangerous, and it's such a weird thing to hear coming out of mainstream politicians' mouths that we need to defund the police. I'm like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah. I mean, when people talk about defunding along the lines of take some of that money and put it into communities, like that piece of it could be, if done well, beneficial.
But why take it from the cops?
I don't know that it needs to necessarily take from the cops, but to really pay more attention to our communities and what they're needing. The police over the last 5 decades have had to take on more and more and more jobs within the community. I mean, a lot of people would say that the key change came in like the 60s when deinstitutionalization happened from the mental hospital. So it used to be if someone was mentally ill, they went to the hospital and they basically stayed there, right? 60s came, deinstitutionalization, all those folks, let's put them out in the community so they can return to their homes.
I think it was a lot of it during the Reagan administration.
Right, let's put money into community mental health. That didn't happen the way it was supposed to. So the community mental health never got funded properly. And then all those folks who had mental illness did not get proper treatment, went off meds, all sorts of
Crime
problems.
rises.
And now who has to deal with it?
Chickens have
Police
come home to
officers,
roost.
right? So they became mental health clinicians, social workers, domestic violence, all of that stuff. So, right, if defunding the police means putting money into social services and helping these folks in a way that makes it so that the police officers don't have to do those jobs anymore, I'm all right with that, and I think most of the cops are, because I've spent half my career on this side of police psychology stuff training folks how to talk to people with mental illness so they don't end up shooting them, right?
Yeah,
so
I think there certainly should be cops that are designated to deal with those specific type of situations.
People have found amazing ways around it to work on it. We've developed what we call crisis intervention teams. This came out of the 80s in Memphis, that, this CIT thing where we have cops and clinicians that go out together. But I don't know any clinician that wants to do that by themselves. So if you defund the police and everyone says, if it's a domestic violence call, send a therapist out.
Jesus Christ.
Well, I know because I work with cops that domestic violence calls are one of the most likely to end in violence.
Yes.
I'm not going there.
Right. And
I might go there if there's an armed person with me, and I'll try to, to do, but like as a team, but you're going to send me into a potentially violent, dangerous situation where you've got two people going.
It's a utopian perspective on a very complicated problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's a simple, we don't like what we have, so let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
And it's far too simplistic.
Well, and you've got the evidence right now. I mean, this is a short-term study in New York City.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
in Minneapolis as well.
Yep. Folks that I know in New York, some of that training program I talked about earlier, the cops that worked on that who decided, retirement is the right thing for me right now.
Yeah.
And who've left the force because they just were like, I can't do this. This is the lack of support and what's going on is just too much. It's not worth staying anymore. And
it's so dangerous.
Yeah, it's very unsettling and overwhelming and to see how, rather than, trying to come in and figure out how to improve what we've got, it's like it just doesn't make sense to throw our hands up and say, okay, get rid of it, because what's the plan B?
When I was in Africa, you reminded me, they eat a lot of blueberries. And so these coloured foods are also good to eat. So resveratrol comes on when...
Yams, dark things, right? Beets.
Well, yeah, leafy vegetables, but also fruits that are very coloured.
Colorful.
So why is that?
Why is that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So we have this idea called xenohermesis, and it's a terrible name for something that's quite simple, and that is that these molecules from plants are produced to make the plants healthier. These are stress response chemicals. And if you stress plants, they turn coloured. Turn on a UV lamp or put a plant in the sun, it'll turn reddish, Mm-hmm. Those are stress chemicals to survive. And I believe that we've evolved to sense those chemicals in our food supply.
Oh, so we're attracted to juicy red tomatoes as opposed to pale tomatoes.
We're not just attracted to it. I think we're attracted to it because they're colorful. But what our bodies get out of it is that these chemicals go into our bloodstream and they turn on our defenses against disease to survive. Why is that good? Why did that evolve or potentially evolve? It's, I think, because when our food supply was stressed, we need to get ready for adversity because we probably run out of food. And if you're a bird or some other dumber animal, or even a yeast cell, how are you going to know if your food supply is going to run out? You've got to know it chemically. So these chemicals are a heads up that adversity is coming. So if you eat a lot of these chemicals through, say, red wine, which is stressed grapes and other things like that, blueberries, these chemicals, they're probably not working mainly through antioxidant activity. They're giving us this stress heads up.
Isn't that's a controversial thing, the red wine thing, correct? Like whether or not red wine, the actual compound of resveratrol is where we're getting our benefit from, because it's apparently a very small amount of resveratrol in red wine.
Yeah, sure. It's not really controversial except when people exaggerate and say that it's all resveratrol. Resveratrol is a component of dozens of healthy molecules in red wine. Quercetin, which is good for a number of things. There's a whole bunch of polyphenols, they're called. And so resveratrol is part of that cocktail.
Is this due to the fermentation process? Because we're talking about grapes themselves with their high sugar content actually being something we should avoid, right?
Right. So don't eat the grapes. But wine, if you don't have too much of it, will have a concentrated amount of these xenohermetic molecules like resveratrol and quercetin.
Is this apparent in red wine?
It's really only in red wine. White
wine is just for chicks, right?
Not as healthy. Not as healthy. Actually,
that's a joke for my friend Bud.
Yeah, you'll get in trouble for that one.
No, it's just for my friend Bud. He always loves white wine. I'm like, that's for chicks, bro. I'm joking, folks. Just jokes. Don't get it touchy.
Yeah, so you don't need to. So that when we treated mice with resveratrol, they were immune to the effects of a high-fat diet, Western diet. And we've traced this down to a single genetic pathway that we work on, these sirtuins I talked about, these NAD responsive pathways.
Really? So they were immune to eating shitty food, like the negative aspects of eating shitty food?
Yeah, this was 2003. That's why it hit all the newspapers, because it was the first molecule that was safe and could mimic the effects of fasting or caloric restriction without actually having to be hungry.
Wow. And what kind of dose were you giving these mice?
It was equivalent of about 250 milligrams a day in a human.
Oh, okay. So it was 1/4 of what you recommend people take.
Right. I don't recommend people take anything.
Well, okay, what you take.
Right.
Let's just say that.
Yeah.
No recommendation. Sorry, folks.
Yeah. I'm taking a higher dose because I've looked at human clinical data, and I think that a higher dose may be required to have an even better effect on longevity. But the results are very clear. When we opened up these mice, maybe I shouldn't have said that. When we examined those mice, carefully put them to sleep for scientific purposes, it was clear that they were healthier. Now, they were still fat. That was interesting. They were still fat, so we figured the experiment didn't work. But their arteries were clean. Their livers were like a healthy, lean young mouse. And when we looked at their metabolism, it was like a younger mouse.
And it's 5 hours from Cleveland, so wasn't a quick jump.
Food poisoning is sketchy. It's
Sucks,
a weird feeling.
Dude. Sucks. It was awful,
I've had
man.
it 4 or 5 times in my life. It's never good.
That's the second time. The first time I had it was in college. It was the worst thing ever. It was way worse. This was both ends. This is when your mouth and back door. When you're it's like a cartoon. I had it in college from movie theater popcorn.
What?
That's real shit.
Movie theater
That's
popcorn
real shit,
gave you
dude.
food poisoning.
Here's how we knew. Me and this other dude, we ate totally different meals all day, and this other friend of ours too. And long story short, whatever, we both woke up sick the same time, like in the middle of the night. And we had asked when I went to the doctor finally the next day, because I was sick all day. And the doctor was like, what'd you eat? I detailed it, and he goes, oh, yeah, sometimes the butter can be spoiled or rotten.
Oh, actual butter.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's why they use that fake-ass butter.
Hell yeah.
What is that fake-ass butter made out of?
I don't fucking know.
What the fuck is movie popcorn theater butter made out of if it's not real butter? because most places don't have real butter.
Jamie's laughing at my sicknesses.
No,
The
it's not.
movie Popcorn.
What do you think it is? It's like got to be some
Like
weird
sort of
vegetable
canola
oil
or something. Yeah, let's see.
Oh, nasty.
It was
shit
weird. It was
for
weird.
you.
Yeah, we
Butter
both
flavored oil. Yeah.
Butter flavored
oily.
Can't
Yeah,
believe it's not butter. What is that?
Ugh, margarine.
bullshit. Well, they
You know
say
how bad that stuff is for you.
Trash.
People used to think margarine's the way to go. Like if butter's terrible for you, have some margarine. Margarine's non-dairy.
it's
it's fucking
way worse.
horrible for you. But all processed oils. You know what they're finding out from those fake meat burgers?
The
They fed them
Impossible
to
Burger?
rats and they're giving them liver cancer.
Yeah.
Pull up what the study was. Yeah. One of those Beyond Meat or Impossible Meat or Not Really Meat, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah. Not meat, but looks like meat. We're trying to make it look like meat.
It's processed oils
with grill marks on it. Why do they do that
The weird
shit?
It's mostly oils.
Yeah.
It's like oils from vegetables. It's very strange.
A lot of soy and shit like that.
Like those processed vegetable oils are terrible for you.
Yeah.
You know what's good for you? Olive oil. That's a good vegetable oil. Avocado oil is good for you. But like all that other shit, like canola and all that stuff's fucking terrible.
This is my question.
for you.
Is it
Here
because it's not naturally occurring?
Rat feeding studies suggest the Impossible Burger may not be safe to eat. Scroll down. This is GMO science. It says, hold on a second. Make that a little larger. Rats. What are you doing? What's going on with your
trying to
phone?
make it bigger and it's just going up.
Rats.
It's not doing it.
Stop. Stop moving. Go back. Jesus, Jamie. Stop. Go back. Go back.
I'm back.
No,
This is it.
no, it's not.
There
Thank
it is.
you. Thank you.
That's it for the picture.
Rats fed the fucking text there, buddy. Rats fed the genetically modified yeast-derived protein soy. Whoa, say that word.
Lehemoglobin.
No, lehemoglobin. Lehemoglobin. That sounds like an Irishman.
Danny Lehemoglobin.
Oh, Danny Lehemoglobin.
He's a good boy. He is
The
Danny
burger's
Lehemoglobin.
key ingredient developed unexplained changes in weight gain and significant signs of toxicity. Why did I put the word significant in there? It wasn't even there.
It felt right.
It did. I'm an editor. Okay. Unexplained changes in weight gain and signs of toxicity. And it said the Impossible Burger is a plant-based burger. The key ingredient, which is a protein called soy
Lehemoglobin.
SLH, derived from genetically modified yeast. A rat feeding study commissioned by the manufacturer Impossible Foods found that rats fed SLH developed unexplained changes in weight gain as well as changes in the blood that can indicate that the onset of inflammation or kidney disease as well as possible signs of anemia.
Holy shit.
Yeah, Impossible Foods dismissed these statistically significant effects as non-adverse or having no toxicological relevance. It's
so funny you can just dismiss things. They did a real study and they're like, not real.
Well, they're dismissing it because it's not convenient. I mean, it's
Right.
real simple. I mean, you do rat studies doesn't necessarily mean it transfers to people. But that stuff is okay. What's the ingredients? Let's find out what the fucking
that's what I wanna
ingredients
know,
of
how
these
they make
Impossible.
it.
Because that's not the only thing that I've read. I've read things by actual nutritionists. They're saying, look, you want to be on a plant-based diet, you should eat real foods. You can eat healthy on a plant-based diet. You can eat real vegetables and avocado and, there's plenty of good stuff to eat. Coconut oils, all this stuff is healthy for you. But when you start making shit look like meat, that's when shit gets squirrely because you're finding all kinds of, they're adding all sorts of processed food. Why'd you take that off the screen?
I didn't want to be distracting while you were talking.
Oh, no, it's okay. So what the fuck is in there?
Top 5 ingredients.
Calories. 4-ounce serving, which is pretty skimpy, clocks in at 240 calories. That's in the range of a beef burger, depending on fat content. Cholesterol. The Impossible contains no cholesterol. To compare, a regular beef patty contains about 80 milligrams. Scroll up, scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. Scroll up. Fat, 14 grams, includes 8 grams of saturated fat, which is generally considered less healthy than unsaturated fat. That's not true. It's entirely dependent upon the source, and it's entirely dependent upon like how you're eating, like what you're eating.
Yeah.
Like it's the idea that saturated fat is bad for you. This has all been debunked. This is comparable to a beef burger, mostly due to the coconut oil, which is healthy for you fuckers. This year, the Impossible replaced a portion of the coconut oil, which is the highest in saturated fat, god damn it, with sunflower oil, which is way shittier for you, which is an unsaturated fat. God damn. This, you know, talking to nutritionists on this podcast has been so enlightening, but so confusing when you see the way that people still want to eat low fat, you know, and they don't understand, like, fats are important. Your body fucking needs them. They're good for your brain. They're good for everything. Omega-3s, omega-6s.
That was the revolution of, like, I remember as a kid, everything became, in like the late 80s and 90s, everything was lower fat, but it was higher sugar content, right? So it was just like, less fat, but they were just increasing the sugar. It was like 1% milk. That's the biggest joke when they're like,
they put sugar in it.
Less fat. Yeah, but they substituted it with tons of fucking sugar.
Because it tastes terrible.
Yeah, it tastes like shit without the fat.
All those monsters that put low-fat milk in their coffee, who the fuck are you?
Piece of shit.
Who are you? They're tricked. They got tricked. They got tricked by this idea that you're supposed to have low fat. Find out, pull up something, what is the Impossible Burger healthy? Is it healthy?
Well, here's the thing. They were pushed. That article obviously was siding with the Impossible Burger because they cited 4 items, and it was like soy protein, coconut, and something else. They don't really tell you how the process is that they make those. That's the thing. They won't say, well, here's how we derive these things and fucking process them.
I was going to say, before I even looked this up, I don't think that they're even marketing as being healthier. It's just an alternative for meat for people that really still want to eat it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's it.
But is it healthy for you?
I don't think that this.
I don't think they're even bothering. Yeah, it's probably less healthy for you than a fucking McDonald's cheeseburger, which is barely meat anyway.